Okay, so also I was curious because I had a best friend growing up that when I got saved, he got saved right after me, and one of the reasons why he wanted to become a Christian was he played Ouija board for like a time at a friend's house and had this like little boy. Apparently, the little boy said he was part of like the Cold War and he died. It was a demon, and it came out of the Ouija board, and they packed up the Ouija board. He went home, and this little boy for 2 years. Think about how crazy this is. This little boy that he could see, it was like a little spirit would follow him around and torment him for years. And the boy would say like, oh, I was in the war. And, and I'm sure you heard a bunch of these stories where these demons would make up this whole elaborate story about how they were a little boy. And the whole goal is to trick people into talking with them, right? And engaging with them. Did you ever have experiences where demons like would follow you home, or you'd be like, all right, we're done with the investigation, and then all of a sudden these demons are going home with you?
Yes, this is actually before I even got into the paranormal world. I actually had a shadow figure throughout my entire life. This is like kind of after those two supernatural experiences when I was a teenager. In my like late teens, young 20s, like I started seeing this really big, just solid shadow figure throughout my house, and just like it wouldn't do anything. It wasn't menacing or anything. It would just appear and show itself to me. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And I remember like my sister also saw it at the same time. We thought it was my mom walking across like through the doorway. We're like, Mom, where'd you go? And it was just this solid figure. And I remember this thing impersonated my dad as well, where I'm like trying to call my dad. I'm like, hey dad, like trying to ask him a question. And dad is walking upstairs. I'm like into the dark hallway. I'm like, Dad, that's why are you like leaving me? And I remember just getting to the top of the stairs. I'm like, Dad, because it's just pitch dark, and then I hear my dad downstairs. And I was just like, okay, that's
Wow.
Dad. And but I used to, once I got into this paranormal world, I loved the idea that I had this shadow friend, and I would be like, oh, that's my friend. I'd be talking on the phone on someone, and I'd be looking at French doors, and I could see the thing pacing behind me as I was on the phone with somebody. I'm like, oh, he's fine. He's just watching over me.
You literally had pet demons. I mean, we always joke, like we'll say like,
Yeah.
don't, get rid of your pet demons, but you actually had these spirits. I want to ask another
Yeah.
question because I know that one of the dangers of us talking about this stuff is it does pique and spark curiosity in people. Do you believe, just to disclaimer for people, do you think that if people watch these shows like you are a part of, do you think that's an open door to demonic activity? And would you like highly recommend people don't go watch these ghost hunting shows and all these things? Because I feel like it is an open door. Like when you start watching these ghost hunter, and you might be like, well, I'm a Christian, I'm just curious. Give maybe a warning to the viewers about engaging in this type of entertainment.
Yeah. Why? Why do you want to watch that? Because like it's not fake. It's not fake. You're watching very real people go against the word of God for once. This is
Mm,
divination, necromancy. So like why do you want to get into that and watch witchcraft and people engaging in these practices? Because like you're watching people communicate with demons. And if it was like it's not innocent, this is so real. And as somebody who has walked this, has been extremely demonized, and like I'm set free, I'm like, why would I ever want to watch that? First of all, knowing
good.
what that does to people, what that can do to people, and just the deception, because don't give them any views. Guard your eyes. Like you got to protect your ear gates, your eye gates, like guard your heart as well. Like if when in doubt, throw it out. I would not be opening myself up to that at all.
That's so good. And and guys, you're listening to somebody that has a decade of experience. She was literally on these TV shows looking for spirits, hunting spirits. So I would take that as a serious word of caution, not to get involved in this world, not to look into this world, because it is no joke, it is no game. I wanted to also ask you, at what point did you in this whole world of paranormal investigating and encountering demons and doing all the stuff you were doing, what point did you say, okay, enough is enough, I can't keep doing this, I'm done with this? Was there like a turning point, or was there an experience you had? What led you? Obviously you're on the show because you're a born again, spirit filled Christian, you're on fire for the Lord. What was the turning point in your life where you're like, okay, I got to get out of this whole world? Because it's hard, Christina. From what you were in, you were so deep. It wasn't like you were just, I'm gonna go one weekend. I mean, you were like, this was your whole life for a decade.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
hard for people to leave that. Same thing with Angela, right? She was had a channel about tarot card reading, or astrology reading and all that stuff. She was in that world, like with a podcast. How did you leave that? What was the turning point of you being like, okay, I'm done with this?
So I feel like sometimes the paranormal and the new age was kind of separate for me at one point, because like I stopped the full on investigating before I gave up the new age. But with the new age, I
Okay.
still did like mediumship on my own. With the paranormal, I had a show on Travel Channel. I was a co-host. So after that experience, I I had really bad PTSD, and like even after I got saved, I had PTSD from one of the episodes I did down in Georgia. For that, it was like such a demonic case where this guy, I remember him showing a ring. I think he was into masonry or some kind of secret society, and his bloodline had like dark magic. His great grandmother was like a black witch, and into like really dark black magic, and like there's a lot of hexes and murder like happening on this property. It was wild, and I remember any time I stepped foot in that house, it was like immediate vertigo. I started thinking like I was not in my right mind. I started thinking everyone was against me. We had a psychic guest come on, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're auditioning another person to replace me. Like I started getting wicked
Wow.
paranoid. That's not me. Like I'm pretty chill. Like I'm sometimes an anxious mess, but like it was just not me at all. And I remember just being like, people are out to get me. And then ever since then, like I remember I saw this like this goblin face in the middle of the woods in the backwoods, Georgia, and this thing just had like this orange. I don't know if you know Star Wars, Darth Maul,
Mm-hmm.
like that
Yeah.
face. Okay,
Yeah.
like it kind of looked like that, but it was like orange and blue and like so disgusting. And it was like peering at me through the woods, and I was just like, this place is insane.
Ugh.
And a lot of stuff followed me home from that. I had this giant like another shadow being, but it was more like made out of tar. That would just like be hovering over me. This thing was probably like 9 feet tall, just like it couldn't even stand up straight in my high vaulted ceiling apartment. It was wild. Standing over, like I had a little altar set up with all my witchcraft stuff, manifestation. It would be hovering over that and like look back at me with a grin. And I just remember being like, I can't do this anymore. So like I turned to the new age stuff, trying to heal myself with um, like hypnosis and shadow work, trying to integrate the shadow. People that are into the new age would know what I'm talking about. And just trying to do cleansing and just rewire my brain and all these things. And what really led me to stop all these things was the lockdowns back in 2020.
Mm.
None of these things were working anymore. I was experiencing such crazy anxiety. I was locked up in the house. It was my husband, now husband, my then fiance. We were with my mom and stepdad, and I was just like, what is going on? I was kind of getting into some conspiracy theories, feeling like I had to do all this. We had to save ourselves and all these things. And I just remember having a panic attack. I'm like, I don't know what to do anymore. These crystals aren't working. These manifestation things aren't, like affirmations aren't working. Like nothing is working anymore. Oh my goodness. And something just, that still small voice just told me to, that like, hey God, turn to Jesus. And I'm like, that is like just man-made religion. That's not going to help me. Like I need the ancient texts. I need the mysteries, the almost like Gnosticism. You know, it's within me. I just have to dig deeper. And I remember just feeling called to watch an Easter service online. I was just like, I remember this stuff. Yeah, this is good. Because I had kind of toyed with going to church at one point, kind of off and on throughout my 20s. And I remember just feeling this desire to just start talking to my dad, who, you know, him and my stepmom, they're saved. They've done mission work. I'm like, all right, let me ask them. Let me ask the hard questions, because I know there's going to be something that I don't agree with. And kind of just got into like an apologetics discussion, and then they just were so graceful and started reading the Bible, and I was like, oh wow, this stuff is real. Because the Lord just like convicted me, you know, like Deuteronomy 18:10-13, just talking about like how all of the things I was doing was an abomination. And I was just like, finally it all clicked on what was going on, and it was just like, this is oh my gosh, what I'm doing. I can't believe it. Like the weight of my sin just hit me. And I remember just crying for like 2 weeks and just realizing that Jesus does save. He saved
Wow.
me. It's like, that's it. That's it.
Did you ever have family members? I think you said your stepdad was Christian. Did you ever have family or friends ever like witness you or say like, hey, I'm praying for you, or if you need prayer for anything. Did you ever, I'm also curious, like, did you ever hear about miracles? Did you ever hear about like deliverance? Because I had never heard about deliverance. When I got saved, like I'd never ever heard one thing about like casting out demons, or I never saw somebody get healed. Was there any
Mm,
exposure to that? Did you even think like, man,
mm.
there is a power side, a supernatural side of God? Or was it kind of like you had no clue that there's this whole supernatural world when it comes to Christianity?
So I had like toyed with going to church for a little bit. Like I actually answered an altar call when I
Okay.
was like 23 years old, but it didn't stick because like I didn't understand sin. I didn't understand forgiveness, and that if I just repented, like I would be okay. Like he would, all of that would be covered. I'd be good. Like I just thought I thought I could still, I was still in the world, and I didn't understand. I didn't get into my Bible or anything like that, and I was like off and on going to church, and but it wasn't really like charismatic type stuff. So like I didn't know about deliverance. I knew about like exorcisms from the Catholic Church, and I had knew about exorcisms that people did in the paranormal community. They claim to do exorcisms and that at these events as well. And but I never really understood the super spiritual. Like I knew that there was angels and demons. Like I still believe in angels and demons, but not in the sense that man-made quote unquote religion had, you know, taught us, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So now
Yeah.
you had this moment in the altar call, but you didn't really surrender your life to Christ. Was there another encounter you had, or another moment, or another altar call, or anything in your life where you just decided, all right, I'm going all in? And then to follow that, you could just add this as well. Who told you that like you need to stop with all this new age paranormal? Like what point was it the Holy Spirit? Because I'm just curious, like who convicted you for you to say
Mm.
like, okay, I need to fully surrender and get rid of all this tarot cards and new age and stuff like that?
Yeah, so it was my dad. He's the one who like he was born again, and just witnessing his life and his dedication to the Lord. Like I remember him. We lived together after my parents' divorce, and it was like we butt heads because like I would have all my witchcraft stuff up. He's like,
Mm,
he's like, can you get the skulls out of the dining room? I'm like, no. I'm like, you're just gonna my poor dad dealing with my stuff. And I'm like, I'll just do a hex. It's fine. Like I'll just hex my door, and you just won't come in. And just oh my gosh, sorry, dad, I love you. Um, but yeah, he would try to talk to me, but like it just fell on deaf ears. Like it was
mm,
just, I'm like, you know what? Would you kill me if God asked you to? Like the whole like um uh, Abraham and Isaac. I'm just like I had
yeah.
all the reasons why I wouldn't believe and all these things. So like, he did try to talk to me, but like nothing. It did not get through. It was a dead doorway. But just I think it was just the lockdowns and just being able to be still and finally hear God, like him and nobody else. And I was just like, man, I actually had somebody at my work that I was working at the time. Like she was a born again Christian as well. And like just the stuff I was getting into, like a lot of born again Christians were like talking about God and Jesus. I'm like, there has to be more to this Jesus thing then. If everyone's talking about it, like I don't get it. What am I missing here? And then I just started reading the Bible and just getting to know who Jesus was and is, and what he did and what he's doing. And that's when it all just clicked, and realizing that like I'd watch different apologetics online, and I'm like, I gotta get rid of this stuff. I don't want any of it. And I threw out everything.
Come
Like
on.
I, I unsubscribed from like all these different courses I was taking, and they were like, why are you leaving? I'm like, because Jesus saves, and da 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 da.
Come
Like I
on.
was evangelizing, and I'm like breaking my wands and throwing out all my herbs and spells and crystals, like everything. I'm like, nothing, like thousands of dollars worth of stuff. I'm like, it means nothing. Bye. See you later. I never want you back in my life ever again. Oh, like the old life is gone. And it was just, he's so good. He's
That's
just so
so
good.
amazing.